I am Jim Collison, and this is the Clifton Strengths Podcast, Season 2, recorded on December 20th, 2022. In this Clifton Strengths podcast series, we'll look at the Clifton Strengths for Leader report, one theme at a time. And today's theme is ideation. If you're listening live, love to have you join us in our chat room, or you can send us questions after the fact. Send us an email, coaching@gallup.com. Dr. Jaclynn Robinson is our host today. She works as a Gallup Learning and Development Consultant and has joined me for Season 1 of the Clifton Strengths podcast, where we looked at well-being at work for each of the themes. And Jaclynn, always great to be with you. Welcome back.
Thank you, sir.
We are spending some time looking at ideation. Why don't we get started with the definition of that?
Sure. So somebody that has ideation is fascinated by ideas, and they're quite able and capable to find connections between seemingly disparate phenomena.
We're looking at this through the lens of our new Clifton Strengths for Leaders report. And so what's the power of this theme, you think, in a leadership role?
Yeah, the way I see it is, as someone who thrives when it comes to brainstorming, this leader can spark new ideas with others while also empowering them to generate new ways of thinking. So I think they really embrace that idea of let's bring forth different perspectives, different minds, different ideas, throw them all on the table and see what works.
I have ideation 7, and I think one of the things we miss on is that, not always, but in some cases, those with high in ideation don't mind giving ideas that don't get used. This may be where it'd be different than a strategic or even, in an analytical, where I can throw out, and this is for me, I can throw out a ton of ideas, for you, give you 10. If you don't use them, it's okay. They were still ideas, right? And so I think that power in the
Yes.
leadership role is sometimes maybe getting teams unstuck, or sometimes getting people unstuck in giving out suggestions or ideas that may or may not need to be followed up with, right? Which gives,
Yes.
right? Because sometimes that is, you feel like, oh, because the person, well, I told you it could have been, and that kind of can create a riff. So those high in ideation, if that works for you, again, it works for me. I don't necessarily care if you use it or not. I just want to give you some ideas on how to get unstuck. Any other thoughts on that?
I've noticed that with those that lead with this high is there's so much energy and just being able to share ideas. Whether
Mhm.
someone takes it and runs with it is another thing, but just that opportunity to share out ideas or to ideate with somebody else is what seems to create so much joy and energy
Mhm. Yeah.
for
No,
someone with this
I
high.
love going through the process of it, doing it right. Okay, so
Yeah.
that may be in the context of both being in a leader role, or just
hmm
in a team session. How could this theme lead others?
Um, well, this leader, they can energize and inspire teams company wide. They can encourage them to break out of that stagnant thinking and really tap into those creative juices. And I think that helps. That helps any employee or team in the organization to overcome obstacles or think differently about a customer need or a product
Mm.
offering. Which kind of automatically just made me think of Steve Jobs. But pushing people, let's think about what's something new that we can create. So I think people never have that sense of feeling stagnant or stuck because that leader is saying, what else can we do? Let's break through and let's innovate, let's create.
Yeah, this may blend in with the next question, which is hinder. But before we get to that,
hmm
kind of thinking through, what do you think the team needs to know about a leader who is leading with ideation? What do you think is important from a team perspective that they understand about their leader?
Ooh. First and foremost, are we just talking about ideas or should we act on these
Mm,
ideas? I think getting that clarity right off the bat can be very helpful.
yeah. Oh, I love that. I had a manager years ago, 30 years ago now,
hmm
who would come up. He'd come to a teammate, and I sat across from each other in cubes, and he'd just come in. Hey, we should, fill in the blank, do this, do that, this. But we knew it took us a while to figure it out. But we just knew he was ideating. To be honest, more ideas than we could ever possibly actually implement. And so
Yes.
understanding that, we kind of came up with a rule like he's got to ask for it a couple times before we actually start moving on it. Don't tell him that's what we said, right? But knowing that as a team
Oh.
member, knowing that from a while, and then eventually having that conversation just to say, hey, look, we need some clarity.
Mhm.
Does this need to be done, or are we just having fun? Are we just having fun thinking about
Yes.
things? How can this? So let's use that to get into this idea. How can this theme hinder
Yeah.
the leadership of others?
It can create instability. And if we're thinking about a leader and the leader having a senior team, if there's too much ideation and not enough action in or direction, they can be really confused by their priorities or feel like they're juggling way too many ideas. And then that can have a cascade effect on the organization overall as everyone starts to question, what are we doing? What should we be focusing on?
Yeah, and I love that. I do think that awareness that this is something. Um, these are my clear thoughts. These are my
Mhm.
unclear thoughts. Right? Of
Mhm.
thinking through that. Right? Hey, I've got some clarity around this. This is not just ideating. And then, hey, like I don't have any clarity. Let's think through this. Right? Of
Yes.
having that dialogue with the team to know for sure, hey, we need to do something about this, or we're just kind of spinning, kind of thinking around that. Would you add anything else to that?
That's a so that's a good point, and that brings me up to the performance piece of it. So if a leader with ideation is not spending enough time creating that clarity on the details of what's involved in the business strategy, whether it's milestones or deadlines or action items, then that's hard for the leader, and that's hard for the
Yeah,
leader to take back and share out with
yeah,
the team to make sure they know what their performance metrics are, their
yeah.
their milestones or actions.
Well, and maybe the
For
awareness of
sure.
others in the team where those themes may come into conflict if they're not spelled out in a way of like, no,
Mhm.
hey guys, this is really just an ideation session. So
Mhm.
feel free not to take ownership, those high responsibility, or
That's right.
thinking it through, those with high deliberative, right? Thinking through these spending this capital, this thinking capital, and then like, oh, you weren't even serious, you
Mhm.
know? That could burn the team or burn the leader or burn the individual, right, on that, and
Yes.
lead us. So I think some clarity, this is one of those themes where clarity in the action is super important. What are we trying to achieve? And maybe they're all this way, just to be honest, but what are we trying to
Mhm.
achieve with this theme, with it? Couple reminders on the Clifton Strengths for Leader report. These two sections, what success and hinders, leads into an action item section. And so you can go through this same process that we just did. That report is available for you. Clifton Strengths for Leaders. And a new report here we just launched just a
Mhm.
month. Geez, it seems like 6 months ago. But well, and for some of you
Oh,
listening, it was 6 months ago. So
2022
uh,
is warp speed.
so that will work. We have two other reports that
Mhm.
you and I want to spend the season thinking about how do we do report dynamics. In other words, if we take the reports and use them together. So, as a leader, how would we use maybe Clifton Strengths for Leaders and the sales report together?
Mhm. Yes. So a leader with ideation can support internal customers. And when I think internal customers, I'm thinking of their own team or a cross-functional team, or external customers in architecting a solution that fits their needs. And I say that because they can come up with good, better, and best options for or with other people that allows them to take that creative thought process and build it into something really large or beautiful that has impact. So sometimes we've got a lot of folks working with cross functional teams as an example. Maybe they're stuck in a rut. Well, that leader can support them, help come up with some good, better, best options that are effective for them and
Mm,
his or her or their immediate team. But then when we think about that true sales aspect of being a support system for external customers, how great is that they have these beautiful ideas and can come up with good, better, best options for that prospect or external client on ways that they can provide solutions to them. So, a couple of different ways that they can
yeah.
really influence as a leader with ideation.
I love the way that ideation cycle could happen quickly in a sales cycle to try different techniques, test it, measure
Mhm.
it, come back and say, okay, did that work? Were
Mhm.
we able to generate a lead, or were we able to close a sale? Were we able to move a product or influence someone in some way. And it
Yeah.
seems like that sales cycle is one of those, certainly on a manufacturing floor or even in
Mhm.
software development. It's harder to ideate that quickly and then test it in the field and then bring back some results. In sales, that may be something that can happen very fast. I mean, you might
Mhm.
think, hey, for this week, we're going to try it this way, and then on Friday we're going to come back around. Did anything work? Like, did anything that we do work? So that could be super
Yeah.
cool when we think about that. And I'm super excited about having both of these reports. When we think about the leader and the manager report together, think about using them together, what kind of
Yes.
success could we see with that?
Yes. So, as an individual that appreciates different perspectives, this person can create a warm and welcome environment for others to share their ideas when they see and verbalize a need for change. So, I always think about that saying, if you see something, say something. And someone with ideation might hear what this person has to say and then go right back to them and say, well, what ideas do you have? What do you think we might be able to do that could,
Mm,
create this change? And now their opinions feel seen, heard, and valued. They're making their opinions count. So, I think they really create that environment for flexibility and change, which people
mhm.
appreciate.
You think about that leadership aspect, and again, not universal, but that leadership
Mhm.
aspect of looking forward and that manager aspect of managing to today. We can't go back and influence tomorrow. So we don't even
Mhm.
think about that. It's gone, right? So looking to the future, looking to today, and then what kind of ideas can we use that can be both today and have that future looking, hey, if we change this now, it could have this future impact, or if we change this now, it could be more efficient. Or if we change this now, it could be more profitable. If we change this now, it can be, yeah,
Mhm.
fill in the blank, right? But of both operational and looking to the future with the leader report, I think there's a lot packed into
Yes.
pack. Now that makes me want to go back and look at the manager and the leader report for ideation. It's in my top 10. And so yeah, it'd be fun. It's one of my favorite themes to do.
I
It
love that.
relaxes me. This is really weird. I like if I can just generate ideas, I'll eventually just take a nap. Like I just like, oh, get so relaxed. Others are fine. Jaclyn, any final thoughts on ideation as we wrap it up?
It just reminds me of one of those themes that can be so playful at the same time, because they're great at coming up with ideas. They're great with creativity, and we're getting to a stage now, just in life, where adults are going back to child's play. You play with Play-Doh, you share out ideas, and that's a way that just helps people feel, to your point, calm and relaxed.
Yeah.
So I think there's a lot that ideation can bring to the table to help everyone feel calm and relaxed, and to really just get in touch with that inner child to come up with new ideas and brainstorm and feel
Mhm.
that level of excitement and energy that we used to have as kiddos.
Yeah, I love it. Well, with that,
Yeah.
we'll remind everyone to take full advantage of all the resources we do have available in Gallup Access. This and plenty more. In fact, if you go to the resources section on Gallup Access and just search ideation, we have a ton of resources for you available
Oh,
right
yes.
now and today. Visit gallup.com/CliftonStrengths. Log in and hit the menu upper left, choose resources, and love to have you do that. Stay up to date with all the webcasts by following us at gallup.eventbrite.com. Join us on any social platform by searching Clifton Strengths, and we want to thank you for listening today. If you enjoy it, share it. Why not? And hit the subscribe button
Mhm.
so you never miss an episode. Thanks for listening. If you're listening live, stay around for a little bit of mid-show. With that, we'll say goodbye.